Okay, we are live. Just waiting for everything to go live across the board. I'm really excited to be back online live here at Circle Leadership headquarters. Very excited to share with you guys today about the lead different, learn different philosophy that we want to share with all leaders, learning development professionals, people and culture, dare I say human resources professionals. A very strong belief about the fact that we not only need to lead different, hence the title of my latest book, where's it over here, but also the need to learn different. And every week at the same time, I'm going to jump online and share with you all some philosophies around leading different and learning different and why it's so important in the world today. So very excited to be able to do that. Let me just check all channels, please, because there was some tweaking that needed to be done with the live stream on some of the socials. But we should be going live. Okay, here we go. Yep, looks like we are live on Facebook, LinkedIn. So let's get started. By the way, if any of you have any comments, questions as we go through this session, please feel free to jump in. Put your comments, they will show up here on the screen in real time, I'm told. So please, let's make this as interactive as possible and ask whatever questions you may have. Let me just make sure that this is public. That all looks good. All right, let's go. So welcome to the Lead Different, Learn Different live stream. I'm going to take you through a bit of a journey today on traditional thinking and leadership development and some of the philosophies and principles that we think are absolutely critical going forward into this new world that we are in, this next normal that we are now presented with. And it's really got to be focused on how to develop leaders who actually lead different. Okay, it's not about developing leaders who can lead more about what they already know. It's we need to lead different. Therefore, we're going to need to learn different. And I'm going to introduce you to the Leadership Evolution Action Plan as we go through this. You see, I don't know about yourselves, but you send your leaders to a 2-day offsite and they come back really inspired and all excited and all the fireworks. But 3 weeks later, nothing's really changed. Now, I don't know if that sounds familiar to any of you out there, but a lot of leaders that I've spoken to over the years, and even my own experience as a practitioner over 35 years in leadership roles across 3 continents, this is pretty much the standard for what happens. So please understand you're not alone. And it's not the leader's fault. It's the model is actually broken. The model in which we train leaders today and what we train leaders on today is actually broken. So the real ROI is hiding in your training budget, right? The one that's killing your ROI is this. It's called the forgetting curve. Now, this was by Edward Ebbinghaus. Yeah, Ebbinghaus's forgetting curve. And he found this back in 1885. So this isn't new stuff, by the way. And what Ebbinghaus found out is that pretty much 79% of what people learn is vanished from their mind. So in the leadership context, 79% of what your leaders learn last month is already gone. So it's not a training problem per se, but it's a design problem. And if you look at this, 58% retained after 20 minutes. Well, you're on this side. 58% retained after 20 minutes, but then within a day, only 33% of that. And then within 6 days, 25%. And within 31 days, you're lucky if you retain 21% of the information that you absorbed. So if you imagine going away on a 3-day, 5-day leadership workshop or course, within 31 days, you're going to be lucky to remember 20% of it. You see, because traditional learning is a one-off event and then what we call silence. And if any of their people or health professionals or anything like that know, this is not how you build muscle, right? And so when you think about science of learning and muscle building, for example, and our brain is just a muscle, the initial learning drops dramatically, as we've already understood with Ebbinghaus. Each review actually of the content flattens the curve. Waiting equals more forgotten. So the longer you wait to use the material, you've forgotten more of it. And I assure you that spaced repetition beats cramming. Now, as a guy who crammed an exam through high school, if I'd actually spent more effort in small bite-sized pieces over a period of time, I would have got a far greater result in school. And oh, by the way, yes, so this philosophy is really critical to understand because most leadership programs ignore this entirely. Okay, they just totally ignore it because we want to get our people off to the courses, get as much knowledge as possible, then get them back into the workplace, right? And that's one of the problems. The design feature, the way we've designed leadership learning and development is part of the problem. The other part is content, which we'll get to in a moment. So who are we and why should you trust what I'm about to share with you today? Well, firstly, I want to welcome you to the team at Circle Leadership. We're a bunch of characters. Myself, Gavin, Justin, Nikki, Jordan, Colin. We are all a team of practitioners. We're not academics. We're not theorists. All of us are people who have lived, led, and loved leadership in some way, shape, or form in organizations around the world. And of course, myself, Gavin, and Justin are actually also published authors on the subject of leadership. So this is our organization, but why me? Well, as the Master Certified Practitioner here at Circle Leadership, apart from being a proud dad of 3 amazing human beings, and what I'd like to tout myself as is the world's greatest husband, at least 17 out of 20 years, I'm also the CEO and founder of Circle Leadership Global, international chair for the Intercontinental Chamber of Commerce. I'm an ambassador for the Global Company Culture Association, an ambassador for Inspiring Rare Birds, inspiring female leaders and entrepreneurs across the country. I've written and published 3 books on the subject of leadership in various forms, and I am a well-known blunt contrarian on leadership. Also, if you can read that last line, I think I'm a better golfer than I actually am. But we're real people, all right? And so this is why perhaps with the wisdom and experience that we've had over the years as practitioners, we've learned a few things. And one thing I've realized in today's world is that today's workforce is built for tomorrow's workplace, but most workplaces aren't ready for for today's workforce. And this means that you have leaders that you have today. The leaders that you have today are not the leaders you need tomorrow. Not necessarily the people, but in the sense of the leadership that they present. So modern thinking. So if we look at traditional thinking, let's talk about modern thinking. Effective learning requires at least 3 to 7 repetitions, all right? But these should be spaced out over a period of time, active rather than passive, and in different contexts. Okay, so that's really important. Not just a little bit of space between each one. You need that for sure, but they have to be active. So once you've learned something, then do something with it. Then put it into context. Then learn something and do something with it and put it into context and do the same thing over and over until you start to embed and take ownership of that concept. And we'll talk more about that in a moment in terms of the process. But this is really important to understand. This is how we evolve as human beings. This is how we learn to walk, talk, ride a bike, drive a car, you name it. Anything we've ever done in life has been through this process. So I really believe it's time to lead different, so much so that I wrote a book on it. And it's not about leading harder, louder. We just need to lead different. All right. We don't even need to be better at what we're already doing. We need to be different because we've been training most people on, or most of what we would call leadership today or leadership development is just modern management practices, right? So most of the leadership training out there is like literally, it's more a management course with a couple of people units in it. And in today's world with AI and all the technology that's available to us, we're going to need to learn how to lead people and manage resources. And please understand, people are not a resource. We should have resources for our humans, not humans as a resource. Therefore, all the leadership development that we're doing today and going forward needs to be all about understanding human beings and how to lead people, right? Because when AI can take care of most of the management stuff and all the doing stuff that most of us have been doing, we've been human doings, not human beings, and it's taking care of all that stuff. What we now need to have is leaders who can unleash the humanity in our organization, right? Leaders who can capture the creativity, the curiosity, the imagination, the intuition, the empathy, the critical thinking of the people, and then use the tools and the resources like AI to do amazing work together. So we need to lead different. We can't lead our organizations the same way in a world that has changed. So what is leadership then? Because I've been asked this many, many times over many years as a practitioner, as I said, of leadership, and actually the premise of which I wrote simplified just over my shoulder here was based on this philosophy. And people say, Dave, you do this leadership stuff all around the world. What does leadership mean to you? And so I crafted out my definition of leadership, which is fundamentally what you can see on the screen here. And leadership is just all about helping other people become the best version of themselves so they can do their life's best work while in your care and beyond. Now, when you look at this definition of leadership, please understand that it says help people become their best to do their best while in your care and beyond. Where in there does it actually suggest you need a position or title to demonstrate leadership? So the first thing to understand when leadership in the world today is we want to develop more leadership, not necessarily more leaders. We don't need more layers of leaders in our organization. We need more leadership. So we want to create more all-around leadership. We do want to create depth and strength in our organization, which is going deeper into the concept of leadership, not more layers. Okay, so we want all-around leadership where we can create cultures where people can lift each other up. And we want to make sure that we have depth and strength of leadership in the organization, right? So that's the first part. You don't need a position or title to demonstrate that. The second part of this definition, hopefully that you can see there, is at the end where it says, while in your care and beyond. And what that should tell you about leadership is that I actually care about you as a human being first and an employee second. So we want to make sure that the leadership development that we're doing looks at people as human beings, not as resources. Right? So this is our definition of leadership. You see, because in today's world, in a world of AI and all this really cool technology that we have available to ourselves, please understand this, that when everything in your business can be copied, even your AI, all right? So your products, your services, your policies, your procedures, your bricks and mortar, your clicks and mortar, everything about your business can be copied, okay? Your branding, your marketing, you name it, and your AI and your tech stack, it can all be copied, right? So you need to have all that stuff just to stay competitive. But the one thing that people cannot copy, and your one true sustainable competitive advantage, is your ability to capture the spirit of your people. So it's your culture, obviously, which is your one true sustainable competitive advantage you have, right? So it's about your people. And the leaders who can't unlock that are suppressing the growth of your business, right? Not only your business won't grow, it will not evolve, and therefore growth will not happen either. Okay, because you need to make evolution first, then have growth spurts along the way. So we need to unlock that potential in our business. When everything else can be copied, the only thing that can't is your people, your ability to capture the spirit of your people. So we not only need to have all-around leadership, but we need people to understand how to unleash that human spirit in our organizations and use all the tools and all the resources and all the technology around us with those humans or through those humans to build the organizations that you're capable of. So this is the interesting part. So if that's what's the one true sustainable competitive advantage, and we have all this tech and everything available to us, how important do you think innovation is going to be to your business moving forward into the future? And if you think innovation is going to be critical for your business, or you don't think it, let me tell you, it will be. Innovation used to be a nice to try thing, but today it is a necessity. It is a must do. So we need to make sure that we remain innovative in our business. But let me assure you this, that businesses do not run out of money. Businesses run out of ideas and innovation. And ideas and innovation come from people, not budgets, and not AI. So it's a finding game, not a funding game. It's about how do we find the best talent, retain that talent, and develop the living daylights out of that talent that we have in our organization. And we unleash that because all the answers are inside the people in our organization. Innovation itself, in is a prefix for within, and novate is to change or do something different. So even the definition of innovate says to change or do something different from within. So we need to be able to unleash that. So we need leadership in our organization that unleashes the humanity, the creativity, curiosity, imagination, intuition, critical thinking, and empathy of the people in our organizations. So what that is suggesting then is every dollar you invest in leadership is either compounding or evaporating. You choose how you choose to invest it. So let me introduce you to what we offer to the marketplace. All our clients are participate in our Leadership Evolution Action Plan, but we're also offering this to the marketplace because you need to create an evolution in leadership in your organization. You just don't want your existing leaders to be more of what they already are. They need to become more of what they're capable of and then be more of that, and become more of what they're capable of and be more of that. If you're just helping your people grow, you're helping those leaders be more of who they are for more people, lead more people, but they're not evolving as a leader. And your people feel it. And that's why people leave the leadership in organizations, right? So I want to introduce you to something different. The Leadership Evolution Action Plan. Now, all our clients at Circle Leadership who are in our Next 90 Business Evolution system have access to this. But we are also running public community groups of this Leadership Action Plan here. It's built on this simple philosophy that less is more often. You don't need to add more programs. You need to start building better leaders. Okay, so these leaders need to become more of what they're capable of, and then be more of that, then become more and be more of that, and become more and be more of that. So it's less is more often. And our process is built on this simple fundamental philosophy: is content times context equals concept. So you need to have learning, like any learning component of any training or development process. We have that too. So you absorb content spaced out over a period of a couple of weeks. For about 2 weeks, you'll learn a very simple, small piece of content, less is more often, right? Very precise learning module, bite-sized piece, right? That you can do that spaced repetition with. Then we help you contextualize that. So then in a group setting, we have coaching where we provide contextualization, so real world application where you can take that learning and put it right into the workplace immediately, right? So everything will be relevant and timely as you put that into the workplace. And you're doing it with a group of peers who all lead people in other organizations. So we're all learning from each other in the sense of community. And then you have a couple of weeks worth to put that action, that what you now have contextualized, and develop an action plan to put it into play in your organization so you can embed the concept. So you learn the content, you coach the context, and you take action to embed the concept, right? And we do that with one session after another. So what it looks like fundamentally is this: we teach the context to the individual, then we have education through coaching in a group format of the context, and then you take your actions and you go put them into place in your organization immediately into the workplace. So there's no waiting around. You've learned it, you've contextualized it, and you've put it in action. And we built this off the Pareto principle. So for those of you who know the 80-20 rule, Pareto found that 20% of Italy's people had 80% of the economic wealth of the country. And then he applied it everywhere, and then the 20-80 rule was formed. I looked at this in terms of leadership. If you go to a lot of leadership courses you go to, there's usually one or two really good things in each session or each day that you're doing your leadership training. The rest of it is important, but it's not as important as some of the big chunky stuff. So can you imagine if you only had to learn the 20% that gave you the 80%? And then instead of spending the rest of the 80% of time learning another 20%, you could take that other 80% of the time and put it back into action with the 20% that's going to give you the biggest results. Can you imagine the transformation you could have if you had 80% of your time back and could put that time back into actually doing the learning, or applying the learning that you've got, that you've contextualized? Well, this is what we've done, right? So we focus on developing those leaders intentionally, right? So that we want to make sure that you can less is more often. Learn the most important things and then get onto those things and get them happening, because you will transform far greater that than spending the other 80% of time to pull in the 20% that's not going to make a big difference. So what does it look like in action? So fundamentally, as described already, as yourself, we have a piece of content that you learn. It's a video learning module, all right? So you watch a video, you watch it within the 2 weeks, at least 3 to 7 times. So let's say 4 times, 2 times each week over the 2-week period, to start to just familiarize yourself with the lesson or the concept, right, that you're going to contextualize. And then you learn that, right? And then there's also forms and models where you can draw and follow along, and templates and tools for you to be able to use while you're doing the learning. Then you come to the group context session every month, 2 hours, once a month, with a bunch of other leaders, all contextualizing that lesson that they're learning into their own world of leadership, but also being able to learn from each other. And then once that's happened, everyone's like, okay, this is what it means. Here's how I can apply it. This is what it looks like. And we've done some deeper coaching within that. You build your own action plan, 1 to 5 things that you're going to do over the next 2 weeks to embed that principle or concept or idea, to conceptualize that idea, right? And then you embed the concept. So you learn the content, coach the context, and then embed the concept. And as you can see, over a period of time, each month you do one thing, And then you learn how to do that. The next month we take the next piece and you do that. The next month you take the next piece and you do that. Then the next month, the next piece and do that. So basically 2 weeks of self-directed content, 2 hours of live coaching, 2 weeks to embed the work. And then you repeat that across all 12 sessions in the leap. And then each module builds on the last one. So we're steadily and progressively increasing our capability, thus our capacity for greatness expands in leadership. So the Leadership Evolution Action Plan, let's talk a bit more about going deeper into the concept of leadership. There's 3 layers of leadership, not 3 layers of leaders, but 3 layers of leadership. The first thing we look at is leadership of self. It's the foundation. You've always said you can't lead anybody else until you learn how to lead yourself. And self-awareness is the key to self-leadership. So we spend the first 3 months on self-leadership, learning how to lead ourselves, right? So that we can help others. Then you move into leader of teams. The next 6 months is spent on leading teams, right? So now you know how to lead yourself. You can help others to become their best and do their best while in your care and beyond, demonstrating leadership through leader of teams. And we have 6 modules we take through that. Then, once you've been able to do that, you can then facilitate that collective wisdom and apply it to a greater good, greater goal, or greater good for the organization. And then you can learn how to lead the business, your business unit, the organization, you name it. So leadership of self, leader of teams, lead the business, all following the same methodology and process. And inside LEAP, we have different tools in our Circle Leadership Toolbox to support each of those modules that we go through. So there's a whole bunch of modules you'll learn from leadership, from leader to lead, and there's a bunch of tools to support it that you have full access to. Because it's great to actually go through the learning, but we want to make sure that everyone has the tools and the training and the resources to be able to become the best version of themselves and do their life's best work. So what does it look like inside the flow of work? So you have access to everything from any device at any time. You can do it right there on your phone. You can do it on your PC, your laptop, tablet, it does not matter. And fundamentally, it's a video of the learning there. So once again, you just watch it the 4 times, at least 2 times every week for the period of the 2 weeks, and you can start to learn. You can see this one here is 9 minutes and 49 seconds. So you tell me you don't have 20 minutes in totality each week over a 2-week period to learn something. You know, my buddy Pete Turin said, Dave, you need to put yourself in danger of learning something new, and that will take some time. So it's about 20 minutes each week for you to learn that. And I would encourage you to do at least a bit more than that. And then if you look at each session will then have, there's the video. This one's how your mind works. There's a session description. It tells you all about what the session's about with the video lesson. Then as you look at that, there's diagrams, models, or templates that you can use. And there's a space to leave comments or ask a question. So if you have a question about what you're learning, there's a group, the community of all the other leaders that are in your community that you're learning with, or our team can jump on and answer the question. So you have access to people 24/7, 365 throughout the whole process. And like I said, this is a simple the video. This one's 9 minutes, 49 seconds for me sharing with you how your mind works. Okay, which is very important, by the way, in self-leadership and about self-awareness. And then, of course, then there's tools and templates. There's blank forms that you can actually sit there and follow along. And as we whiteboard out stuff, it's a very practical, very pragmatic process, right? And so we do it live there through the sessions, and then you can just follow along at your own pace, and you have all the templates and tools to be able to do it yourself. And as mentioned, you have access to the Circle Leadership Toolbox. You get to empower your team, right, with all these tools in this toolbox here. So we have a lot of models. You can name it videos, other things, templates, tools, exercises, everything you can think of that you may want or need. And if it's not there, you just ask us and we create it for you anyway. But you get full access to the Circle Leadership Toolbox as being part of the Leadership Evolution Action Plan. Like I said, so there's got a whole bunch of stuff in there that you may want to need or use throughout the whole process, or other things that just may add value to the organization beyond what you're doing in the leap. So what's the real cost of doing nothing? You know, ballparked out about conservative cost of losing 2 senior managers in a single year. Now, depending on the size of your organization, but this is what it can cost you when you think about training, development, replacement, recruiting, wages. It can be very expensive. Heck, make it 100,000. It can be very expensive to lose senior leaders of your organization or lose people because of leaders in your organization. Right now we already know that 70% or more of employees around the world in organizations are disengaged in the work that they're doing. It's interesting to note that 10% of most leadership budgets are spent on things that actually matter, right? So only 10%. People don't leave companies, they leave leaders, as we already alluded to. And you got to think about, like, how many hours a week do you spend compensating for leadership gaps that you've already paid to close? So if you're running an organization, or you're head of people and culture or learning and development or HR, and you've been investing all the stuff to close a gap that's not closing because behavior isn't changing, knowing and doing are two different things. What is that costing you? Multiply that by 12 every month. What is it costing you every week in your business? We have other clients that have been through this. One of our clients in Melbourne, phenomenal organization. John's feedback was brilliant. Learning in real time with other leaders across multiple organizations makes the learning more relevant and timely. The bite-sized approach is perfect for commercial reality. Because that's the other big thing here. Can we afford to send people away for 3 days these days, or 5 days? So the fact that this is 2 hours once a month and a couple of, an hour or so for the first week, and then actually just putting it into action the last couple of weeks of the month, it's a very, let's say, for those time poor people, it's a very effective way to go about it. It's an effective way to go about it just because it's the best way to learn, but also it stops you from trying to find time. You don't have to find time, or make time available to do your learning. It becomes part of your job, part of your role. Learning just becomes part of the process. So we have all this great feedback from our clients and other people who have been exposed to our Leadership Evolution Action Plan and our learning methodologies. So what we have coming up, May 2026, we have a new cohort starting towards the end of May. We like to keep the cohorts of the community groups to 20 leaders, because slightly bigger but slightly smaller, around the 20 mark, because it just creates a really great environment that's conducive and gives everyone a chance to be able to participate in the coaching sessions. It runs for 12 months, all right? And we're closing enrollments for this particular one at the end of April. I know a lot of people will be thinking, okay, what's the investment in such a thing? Now, a lot of people will spend anywhere to $5,000 to $8,000 to send people away to 3 to 5 day leadership workshops in different events, and even more in other certificated or credit-based programs that are available. But our process, basically, you can take a look at it. It's $4,000 for the year. That's it, all inclusive. That's it. You have two options. You can pay that up front, or you can pay $1,000 deposit and you pay $400 a month for the next 9 months. So total out to about $4,600, which is way less than losing one employee in your organization, one human being. And that gives you 12-month access to everything, all the learning, the Circle Leadership Toolbox, the coaching, the support, and the peer accountability. And, yes, we'll even give you a certificate of completion. So that's the Leadership Evolution Action Plan, and why we believe this is the best way not only to lead different, because we're going to focus purely on leadership of human beings, but also learn different because we've improved the learning methodology so that we can actually digest the information and put it into action straight away. So you start to feel the transformation. And in the first 3 months, you can already see your leaders transforming. And if you are interested and you've watched this, the simple thing is just to book a discovery call, no pitches. We'll say we're looking for the right people for this cohort. If it's something of interest to you that you want to lead different in your organization, or you want your leaders to, and you really realize that the workshop or leadership programs, traditional thinking is not working anymore, or for your organization, and you want to see real behavioral change, then this might be of interest to you. No obligation, free call with us. I'll give you the link at the end of this to take a shot of. And then you can just confirm your enrollment. Hey, yes, here, I want to put myself, or 2, 3, 4, whatever leaders from my organization into the next cohort. And then let us do what we do best. Right? So question is, your leaders are ready to evolve. Are you ready to invest in their evolution? Or are you going to keep funding their knowledge and no behavior change? Okay, I'll put a link in at the end of this live stream to the landing page. We'll give you all the information you may want, but it's right there, circleleadershipglobal.com/learn-different. And we're looking for all the enrollments to be done by April 30th. So if anybody has any questions after watching this, please put them in the comments, and I will deal with those, happily deal with all those questions and respond to you. And if you would like to book an appointment or like just an online discovery call, basically to talk about your organization and what this might look like, please take a screenshot of this or use your camera, and it'll take you straight to discovery call calendar, and you can book in a time and to sit down with us and have a chat. Doesn't cost you to have a chat, but it may cost you if you don't do something different. Other than that, thank you very much for everybody for jumping into this. I'm going to do it again next week. I'll be presenting this every week for people because apparently there's some power in spaced repetition, to be able to share with everybody what we're doing here in our efforts to not only lead different, but to help people to learn different. Because we're here to create organizations that aren't just the best in the world, but the best for the world. At Circle Leadership, we see a world of work where work positively impacts people on the planet. Can you imagine where work is a great thing? One of the simple ways, and I'll leave you with this, that we define this is we're trying to turn TGIF into TGIM. We want people to go, thank God it's Monday. I get to go to work. I enjoy what I do. I get to do the work I love with the people I love doing it with, for the people I love doing it for. And I just wish that for everybody. So thank you very much for all of you who participated and watched through this session. For those of you who commented, thank you very much. I'll respond to your comments, and we'll see you next Monday if you choose to join in again.